Hi everyone, happy Thursday. I'm really excited for our live today. It's going to be on recognizing and diminishing our triggers, which I know is a really prominent thing for all of you that are in this group. I've heard a lot about a lot of these women struggling with triggers, and it's something that I struggled with deeply as well. And so this is going to be, I'm really excited to share, this information with you all. And so if you're here with me, go ahead and drop a heart, drop a like, say hi, let me know that you're here. And if you are watching the replay, then go ahead and hashtag replay. Hey, Janelle. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and get started with basically what are triggers. And so triggers are a emotional connection between the conscious mind and a painful experience, something that sets off a memory or a flashback, bringing you back to an event that was really, really painful. And so where this stems from, and I always, if you've listened to my videos, a lot of this stuff goes back to childhood. And so when we are in childhood, when we're young, we inevitably experience some kind of pain, suffering, or even trauma that could not fully be processed. When we are children, when we experience something so intense or too much, our receptors would literally fry if we tried to process it. So out of safety, our subconscious will repress that for us. And so what happens then is we've processed a little bit of it, but then we have these lingering traumas, these lingering wounds within us that get triggered when an event happens, or when something does something, or when somebody does something to us. Maybe we smell or see something that reminds us of this old wound. And a lot of the times we don't even know where the heck this is coming from. And so that's why we have to really bring awareness and get really familiar with ourselves and our triggers and be able to recognize those. And so we can think of triggers. Basically, it's a messenger to show us where we aren't quite healed yet. And so some examples of being triggered, some examples of getting triggered is someone being judgmental or critical of you. This is something that has been such a deep trigger for me, especially if somebody comments on or criticizes my parenting. I go into this spiral of just deep hurt. I was criticized quite a bit growing up, and so even if somebody's not criticizing me, but it feels like it, I get triggered. And my triggers used to, a lot of the times, our triggers can run our lives. And I'm really grateful that I'm at the point where, yes, we still get triggered no matter how much healing work we've done. We'll always get triggered, but the great thing is we can actually handle those triggers and take it from an event that where we get triggered for days or weeks or hours, and it'll happen for a much less period of time, and it will also allow us to take the intensity out of the trigger. So something where you were feeling, I love to talk with my clients before they start my program and after they start my program and kind of have them gauge their triggers. And a lot of them say that their triggers are at a 10 for intensity. And by the end of the program, I have them evaluate it, and usually it's a 1 or a 2. And so this is totally possible to take your triggers from that intensity and bring them down. And so I'm going to share with you guys some of the techniques that I've used with my private clients to get to that point. And so, like I said, someone being judgmental or critical can be an example of something that triggers us. When someone tries to control you, if you experienced control in childhood, this can be a major trigger. You don't want anyone to try to control you. You want your freedom. And so if anyone tries to tell you what to do, and this could be in your relationships, this could be in your work relationships, really in any part of your life, these triggers can come out and we have to relate back. And so when someone tries to control you, being ignored, if you can remember a time when you were a child and you felt ignored, and then now you're looking at being ignored as an adult, if you were in a relationship or you are in a relationship where you get stonewalled, where somebody gives you the silent treatment, where you get ignored, and you feel crazy, like you go off the wall and you start hyperventilating, or maybe you just have this major anxiety in your chest from being ignored, it's because you are experiencing the same kind of pain that's reminding you of what you experienced in childhood. And so, and I know that, obviously as adults, we also have traumatic experiences that trigger us now, but even those adult experiences that you had that were traumatic, those are stemming off of a previous event that happened between typically ages 0 and 7. And a person being too busy to make time for you, that can be extremely triggering. Again, if there was a parent that always worked, and I've said this before in my videos, this isn't to blame or to say that you had a bad childhood if these things happened. This is just to bring awareness. This is purely for the fact of understanding. So you can have a great childhood and still have these experiences because our parents are all doing the best they can with what they know how. And so if a parent or a caregiver didn't have time for you because they were always working in childhood, and then in your adult life, if you feel like this happens with your friends or your romantic partners, that can become really, really painful and really triggering. And that's where you feel these irrational behaviors start to arise, or these impulsive behaviors start to arise. And it's all simply because the inner child is not feeling safe. The inner child is like, oh my gosh, this event's going to happen to me again. And so we just have to bring awareness to that. Not getting invited to certain events, that can be really triggering because automatically we go into, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough. Oh my gosh, this person didn't want to hang out with me. Something along those lines. And so someone giving you a disapproving look. If you can remember a time when this happened for you, whether it's a partner, a boss, a friend, that can be really triggering because then you think you did something wrong. And if you felt in childhood that you were always in trouble for something, which is something that I felt, I was always in trouble. And so being able to understand that trigger and looking at it and saying, okay, I really get triggered when somebody gives me disapproving look. And even if they aren't doing it, sometimes we can feel like they are because it's bringing back those feelings. And so right now we're literally just starting to recognize and understand where these feelings are coming from and really what these triggers are. And rejection in any shape or form. If you feel rejected by a friend, a family member, maybe your work was rejected, or maybe somebody didn't like an idea that you had. Anything of that sort, any kind of rejection can be really, really triggering. And so everyone has different triggers and it affects them differently. But now that you have heard some examples, and I'm sure that you know what some of your triggers are, and it's important for us to know this because awareness is the catalyst for change. When we know what our triggers are, we can take a step back and we can say, okay, I recognize that I'm getting triggered right now. These very intense feelings that I feel are just a defense mechanism to keep me safe. So we can begin to rationalize that because I know we can start to ask ourselves, like, why is this affecting me so deeply? Why am I feeling like I'm crazy? Why am I having these, impulsive behaviors? And so when we can recognize that and be like, okay, I see that I am getting triggered right now. I'm going to take a step back and just recognize that this is a coping mechanism that I had to cultivate when I was younger to keep me safe. That's really all this is. And so, some examples of how we may react when we get triggered is getting angry. if you notice yourself, say if somebody commented on the way that you were doing something and it made you feel really triggered and you lashed out at them, or maybe a person didn't text you back in a certain amount of time and you started to feel rejected and you were scared they were going to abandon you, and so you text them and you send them a couple angry texts. Shutting down or giving the silent treatment. If we feel unsafe, which is what these triggers are, then this is where we can shut down. It's a freeze response. And so we freeze, we don't know what to say. We feel so overwhelmed that we don't know how to communicate. And becoming needy. If we start to feel rejected, then we will start to feel that fear of rejection and abandonment, and we'll start to be really needy. Maybe we'll send a lot of texts multiple times in a row. We'll need somebody's response right away. We'll look to somebody else to soothe us. That's what that can look like. Turning to addiction. That can be food, sex, alcohol, drugs, shopping, gambling, any one of those things. That is all a symptom to the problem. The core problem is the trigger, the trauma behind the trigger. And so when you notice yourself turning to food or turning to alcohol, turning to a guy or a relationship to make you feel better, what's happening is you are avoiding these uncomfortable feelings. Blaming others, it's also a defense mechanism. In order to keep ourselves safe, we have to take the focus and the blame off of us and put it onto somebody else as a way for us to cope, because we can't handle the feelings of this pain, and so we have to project it. It's a coping mechanism. It's something that we can work on. And the other one is people pleasing. So if you feel like you're getting triggered and people pleasing comes from core wounds of rejection and abandonment. And so if you feel like that is happening, then you automatically self-abandon and you start to people please, and your boundaries kind of fall to the wayside because you are so fearful of getting this rejection or abandonment wound reopened that you're willing to self-abandon. And so that is some of the ways that we cope in ways that doesn't benefit us, right? And so the very first step in overcoming these triggers is being able to focus on the feeling. When we get triggered, think about it. We want to automatically get out of the situation. We want to automatically avoid the feeling. And so again, that's when we turn to our dependencies, when we turn to things to get away from the feeling. And so when you're feeling triggered, it's so important to be able to sit with this feeling. I always say that we have to feel it to heal it. And so when you notice yourself get triggered, that's where you can take a step back and you can begin to recognize, you can say, okay, I'm starting to feel, the feeling behind this is rejection. The feeling behind this is fear. The feeling behind this is hurt or pain. And so once we can do that and we begin to rationalize it, it allows us to calm down a bit. And so one of the worst things that we can do is avoid our triggers, because they'll continue to come up, and that's their job. All our trauma is trying to do is resurface so that it can be healed. But if we don't know that and we continue to let go, or we continue to mask these triggers with our default coping mechanisms, then you're going to continue to get triggered over and over, and it's even going to become more intense over time. And you may get numb to it, but the thing is, it's still going to come up, and even if you're numb to it, it's going to come out in other areas of your life. So that can look like stress, that can look like anger, that can look like constant states of anxiety. And so that's why we need to get a hold of it now. And that's why my clients have had such success in overcoming their triggers, because we're healing the root cause. And once you heal the root cause, you don't have the need for these coping mechanisms, because like these dependencies and these emotional outbursts, because the core of the problem is being soothed. And so allowing yourself to recognize where it's coming from, saying, okay, I remember when I was a kid and I wanted to play with my dad, and he was on a work call and he told me not to bother him. That really, really hurt me. This didn't actually happen, but I'm just, giving an example. And so you can go back to one of the first memories that you had that reminds you of this feeling. And you can say, okay, like this is where this is stemming from. And once you've been able to do that, and you take time to actually heal your triggers and allow yourself to respond authentically rather with a knee-jerk reaction, then you will be so much more at peace. If you choose not to heal your triggers, and then you're ultimately placing your power and happiness in someone else's hands, because you're saying, as long as this person does not do this, and as long as this person acts in a certain way, then everything will be fine. But the truth is, we don't control other people's behaviors. So that's why we have to get a hold of our triggers, because we can't tell everyone, hey, this triggers me, so don't do it. You know what I mean? And so that's why we have to handle our own triggers and get to the root cause of it. Otherwise, we were always going to be, our happiness is always going to be dependent on everybody else's actions. And chances are, if this has been happening for you, it hasn't been going very well. And so once you're able to cope with your triggers and you build up your self-esteem and you have healthy boundaries, you're going to be able to see that other people's actions, you'll be able to see them from a different point of view, and it'll feel like it's not a reflection of us, but rather just how they're handling and dealing with their own trauma and their own emotions. Because like I said, like a lot of the time when we get triggered, we automatically think that something's wrong with us. Really, it's just that person's actions is due to their own experiences. And so once you're able to get a hold of your triggers and begin to soothe those and heal the root cause, you're going to notice that the triggers that you have really aren't going to affect you as deeply as they were, and they're not going to run your life, which is what we want. We want peace, we want freedom, right? And so then we have to go into, once we have done that work, we have recognized our triggers and where they're coming from, then we can go into self-soothing. And self-soothing is where we get to handle our own emotions instead of turning to, coping mechanisms that don't benefit us, like drinking, sex, food, gambling, and shopping, and so on. Instead, we want to self-soothe in the way of letting your inner child know that you are safe, that she's safe. And so what we can do here, and I want you guys to all do this with me if you can, is go ahead and close your eyes, and I want you to place your hand on your heart and just rub in a circle. Rub here, and this is going to allow you to get in touch with your body and just tell yourself, I am safe in my body. You are safe. It is safe to have these feelings. I am safe in my body. And as you do that, just having your hand to your heart and moving in a circular motion like that, there's so much relief there already. And so that is a major component of this, is being able to get in touch with that and telling yourself that it's safe, because we don't feel safe when we get triggered. And so allowing yourself to be there for you, be there for that inner child, and just continue to tell her, you are safe. I am safe. I am safe in my body. You are safe. That's going to be really, really helpful, because when we have these triggers, it's really just the inner child getting in the driver's seat saying, hey, something's not right. I feel in danger. Please help me. And then a really great grounding technique is being able to recognize what are 5 things that you see, 4 things that you hear, 3 things that you feel, 2 things that you smell, and 5 things and 1 thing that you can taste. And when you do that, you are grounding yourself back in your body. And it's much easier for you to get out of those compulsive, obsessive thoughts and those feelings, because we're grounding back in. And so I really encourage you guys, next time you are triggered or you're having a panic attack, that is something that you can turn to for a quick grounding experience. And then you need to change your physiology. When we are anxious, we notice when we're triggered, we notice that maybe our shoulders are scrunched, we're clenching, maybe we're clenching our thighs, or we're having fists, or maybe you're breathing really, really quickly. The best thing to do is being able to take a big deep breath in and out. A great breathing technique is breathing in for 4, so breathing in, and then breathing out for 5. And what that's doing is you're breathing out more air than you're breathing in, and this calms the nervous system. So you're taking yourself out of fight or flight when you're doing this. And so that's how you can change your physiology with your breathing. You can relax your shoulders. You can allow yourself to melt into your chair. If you need to lay down, you can melt yourself into your bed and release all tension. You can go for a walk. And you can even make yourself laugh. You can watch funny YouTube videos, but you have to get yourself out of that state once you've been triggered. And so those are the top 4 steps that you can do is, for recap, you focus on the feeling. Where did this feeling come from? Then you go into breathing and self-soothing. And so rubbing your chest, your affirmations of I am safe, you are safe. And then going into the grounding technique, and then changing the physiology. And so if you are unsure of where your triggers come from, or you're wanting more clarity or insight, then comment below and I'll know to DM you, and we can dive deeper into this and see where these triggers are coming from and gain more clarity on them, so you can actually begin to dissolve them. So I hope that this was really helpful for you guys. Thanks for joining me today, and I love all of you.